Hello, ideas again. And I'm going to go back even further. Yesterday I went back to why, as in why is this crisis going on, and explained because it's the debt stock that has stayed up as opposed to the debt servicing levels which have already come down, and tried to explain that this was a debt problem that happens about every 80 years or so. It's a build-up in debt in basically in the private sector, as opposed to an inventory build in one part of the economy which has just got its business plan wrong, which leads to all the other recessions that we know since the Second World War. That was just business plans going wrong. Sometimes, yes, it was caused by things like an oil shock, which caused the business plan to go wrong, but basically the recession was due to, you could call it the oil shock, but it was really the business plans that were pushed out of shape. And things like the dot-com crash was just business plans that were out of shape. Okay, but this 80-year kind of hello again, it's when the private sector gets itself with too much debt stock. Now, another thing to add here, although I'm going to come to it later when I start moving forward again, is that economics, and I've already drawn the picture, this is why it's in my mind. I've got these squares and triangles and things and the links. But what I've done, I've put one of these smileys in the middle, and you can do a smiley face, or what's the opposite of a smiley face? A miserable face. That is crucial. It's been brought up in one of the comments there. The debt stock is the same. It's gone up through 2004, up to 2008, and now it's down to 2004 levels, approximately. Different countries, different things, but approximately something like that. Why wasn't the problem that we have now a problem in 2004? It's all to do with the smiley face or the miserable face, and I'll come to that later, but it's basically psychology. If the people, on average, are envisaging a bright future, like they were in 2004, everything is cushy, fine, no problem, top bananas, fine. But in 2012, miserable face, look into the future, ugh. Yeah, that is the difference. The debt stock is the same, but the difference is the smiley face and the miserable face. But we'll come to that later. For this one, I've gone back even one further why. So I'll probably entitle this one on the website, Why, in the ideas section. And this is because it's come up in comments as well. Who caused this problem? It's an interesting enough question, and when it comes, again in the future, where I'm going with this series, where we've already been through what's going to happen, the debt is going to be inflated away by government. Government's the only body that with its central bank that can inflate stuff away, or it's going to be defaulted on or paid. And it's more likely to be paid, obviously, if inflation is put in. Forgotten what I was saying. What was I saying? Forgotten completely. Anyway, so let's go on to this chart. Oh, the list of the whys. Okay, the whys. And people are saying it's this that went on. And in the last 5 years, I have heard so many. If I'd made a list, it would have been pages and pages and pages long of why basically the people got over indebted. That's the basic line. And what I'm going to say here is that's interesting. Oh yeah, that's what the link was to the pay the debt, default on the debt, or inflate the debt away. That's going to come as an actual reality in our future, and a lot of that, which one is going to be picked, is actually going to probably refer back to who caused it in the first place. If it was, for example, if it was all decided, obviously it never will be because it's impossibly difficult and confusing, that it was all the bank's fault and they forced the people let's say subprime. I'm making it very simple. Obviously, we're across the Western world and it's much more confusing. But the banks force the subprime people to take loans, then it's more likely that the government will force the banks to take write-downs on the debts owed to them by the people. In other words, when it comes to deciding which route to take, or in America, which route to take, of the inflation, let them default, make them pay, will be kind of worked out on, well, why did everyone get into debt in the first place? There will be apportioning of blame. But this must be taken into account, because this apportioning of blame, as I said, if you read my list that I didn't take over the last 5 years of all the people that have been blamed, there'll be no result from it anyway, because there's just far too much to argue about. Okay. Yeah? Yeah. So it's just too confusing to go through the list of everyone to blame. So in my role as putting things over in a simpler way, I've gone and found another key, which doesn't actually unlock everything because, as I say, it's so complicated, but it makes things one stuffing size easier to handle. Okay, and it's this chart. Yes, always a chart. And in its way, it can be argued with this chart, but it is representative, and this is what's most important, because it's a broad brush representative of two things that I want to point out here. The green line, the United Kingdom, is representative of the Western world. The United States, Canada, Australia, most of Europe, probably where you live, basically. And these are house prices rebased. They've been rebased to 100 in the year 1981, by the looks of things. So we're talking 30 years. And these are house prices and how much they've gone up from that 1981. And it's a ridiculous number. And the numbers don't really matter on that axis. I haven't made sense of them. But it's the idea which is actually a representative of a great deal of reality. I can't see that it paints a perfect picture, so don't go harping on or whining about this graph, all right? But it is representative of what has happened. It is representative of real reality, with the United Kingdom representing the Western world. Except the blue line, Germany. Okay. Lots of things about their reunification, and at the start, 1980, they were still in East Germany and West Germany and all that sort of thing. We don't need to go into those sort of details. Just leave it comfortably in your head that this graph is representative of what's happened for house prices over the last 30 years. So when we come to ask ourselves why, the double why, in other words, who's responsible for getting everybody into debt too much? Was it the government? Was it the banks? Was it Fannie and Freddie? Was it the credit rating? Tear up the list, throw it away, go in via this. What was different in Germany than in the rest of the Western world? And I think you can forget your East-West Germany, your reunification. That obviously that plays a part. It plays quite a big part. Is it the German people that aren't mad, crazed loons? We know that they rent a lot more than they buy. Is that so bad? Are they really grumbly and crotchety about renting in Germany? It's a factor. It's part of the way they do things. It works for them. I'm not saying everything should flop over to that system, but that's the reality. Yeah. Is it the German people? Or is it the German government that has arranged it this way? That in Germany, they have not built an economy based on buying and selling houses to each other. They've actually gone on and done other things. That's what you need to ask yourself when you come to apportioning blame, because it will come when we come to deciding who's going to lose over these debts, because somebody's going to lose, and there are going to be big arguments about it. If you can use your brain, think about Germany. Right, now the second thing that I wanted to introduce here at the same time is thoughts on liberal conservatives. No, what do they call themselves? Conservative people, what's the word? Monetary conservatives, the types in the United States that want a bit more grip taken by the government on its expenditure, basically to shrink government down, to get out of the way and let private enterprise flourish. Fiscal conservatives, that's what they call themselves, isn't it? And that type. Have a look at this chart. Germany. The government is huge, one of the biggest. It's not, I would say, and this is just the second part, this is me adding a bit on. Don't forget the first part, which is about apportioning blame, about why people ran into debt. This is, I do not think from this chart and other thinkings that it is the size of government that is important. It's the way it uses it, or it's the way you use it, or whatever you want to call it, to link that up. Yeah, it's not the size of government. German government is huge, and they're doing very nicely, thank you. Maybe we can find some small government that's doing nicely, thank you. I can't think of one, but maybe you can. It's not the size of government, it's what the government damn well actually does that is important. If you want, you can have... Washington is a disgrace, basically. It doesn't matter what the size of the government is. If the people can agree that the government is doing what it is doing efficiently, better than private enterprise can, or at least they're happy with the size of what it's doing, and the people keep their eye on the government and don't let it do stupid, corrupt, madcap, loony things, then you get reasonable policies. And because there's democracy, because the people are involved, the whole country can go forward and get things done. In the Western world, like the United Kingdom and the United States, represented by that green line, the people have decided that they will be democratic once every 4, 5, 6 years or whatever it is, and that's the end of it. And then they go and watch television. And that is the government you get. And that then the government does something. It's not the size of the government that counts. It's what the government does that counts. So just simplistically saying, bring the size of government down is to miss the point, in my opinion. You want to get in there and control what the government does. But obviously, this is a generational thing. So, quick repeat. Who's to blame for the people being in debt? Ask the Germans. I'll leave it there. Bye.